So let's start off with the timpani here. The timpani were the first percussion instruments to be used in an orchestra, and to this day they're still the most commonly used percussion instruments. You're more likely to see these on stage than any other percussion instrument. Now the timpani kind of have three functions in the orchestra. First of all, since they are drums, they do serve a rhythmic nature. They can kind of drive the orchestra. They also produce a very resonant open sound. That means they're very ringy and very powerful. And because of this, I can do what's called a roll, which is where I play so fast that it sounds like one sustained note. So in that way, I can get beautiful long tones as well. The last aspect of timpani is that they are actually tuned to pitches, and I can change those pitches with the pedals down here by my feet. So to demonstrate all three of these aspects, I'm going to play a short excerpt from a piece by a Scandinavian composer named Sibelius. This is the Overture to Finlandia. So this is the snare drum. And the snare drum was originally developed as a way to march armies outdoors. And to do that, it needed to be two things. It needed to be very loud so that everyone could hear it over a great distance, but it also needed to be very articulate so that everybody could hear the rhythms that were being played so they could all march together. The snare drum accomplishes this with this neat little invention here. On the bottom, these are called snare wires, and they are stretched across the bottom of the drum. Now they do two things. Since they touch the bottom of the head, they resonate or buzz when I play the drum, which makes it louder. They also kind of stop the drum from ringing as long, which makes it more articulate. And to show you the marching heritage of the snare drum, I'm going to play a little piece of Prokofiev's Peter and the Wolf for you. This particular scene is at the very end when Peter and his friends are marching triumphantly back into town after having bested the wolf. Oh, and you may notice I'm using different sticks than I did with the timpani. You'll notice that throughout this video, every percussion instrument has its own kind of stick or mallet that it's played with. The previous mallets were very soft. These are much harder. All right, so these are the hand cymbals, sometimes called crash cymbals, and they're called crash cymbals because how I play them is instead of with a stick or a mallet, I actually pick them up with my hands and crash them together, which makes a very loud metallic sound. And I can do what's called choking that, which is where I cut off the sound so it's short, or I can let them ring and they sustain for a long period. And they are also capable of making other sounds as well. For instance, I can do a scrape, like that, or I could play very softly, like this. But more often than not, the crash cymbals are used during loud sections, and they're often used to represent certain sound effects. For example, in this short little bit I'm going to play from Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet Overture, the cymbals are actually meant to represent the sound of a sword fight that's going on. Here we have the bass drum. And like the cymbals, the bass drum is a very powerful, dramatic instrument, and so it's often used in sections of music to kind of emphasize very energetic or dramatic things. Now, the bass drum is actually one of the loudest instruments in the orchestra. When played full volume, it's actually louder than a jet engine. And like the cymbals too, I can play it long or short by dampening or letting it ring. And when I dampen the bass drum, I typically use my knee, like this, to get a short note, and then I take my knee off to get a longer note. And one of the best examples of the bass drum's kind of very powerful and energetic addition to the music comes from Tchaikovsky's Fourth Symphony, the finale. This is one of the fastest, loudest, most energetic pieces of music, and the bass drum really helps drive the orchestra all the way to the end here. Here's the tambourine. It's one of the smallest instruments I play. It's the smallest one I have here today. It is also one of the oldest ones I have here today. It's been around for hundreds and hundreds of years. And it's become kind of associated as kind of a celebratory instrument, or a party instrument, if you will. It was often used by traveling musicians during outdoor festivals in the Middle Ages. A couple of reasons for that. First of all, since it's so small, it's very easy to transport. Also, it can actually be played while you are dancing. But in the spirit of the tambourine's celebratory nature, I'm going to play a piece for you, a section of a piece from Dvorak's Carnival Overture, which is about a celebration. And when I play the tambourine, sometimes I play it up high like this, sometimes I play it down here on my knee, and how it makes its very unique sound is I play on the top, which is called the head, and that causes these little metal rings called jingles to buzz, which creates a very bright kind of snappy sound. These are the bongos. Now, the bongos are an example of Latin American percussion instruments. These are instruments that were originally developed for Latin American dance music. Now, there's a lot of different sounds I can get out of the bongos with just my hands, and then if I want louder sounds, I can actually play with sticks as well. But when I'm using my hands for a basic kind of bongo beat, there's a few different sounds I can get. There's two drums here, a high drum and a low drum. With the high drum, I can hit on the edge with my fingers like this to get a very high piercing sound. I can hit with my thumb to get kind of a dead sound. I can also play with the tips of my fingers to get something a little bit in between. And then I can also move over to the low drum and get a very ringy low tone. So see if you can hear all those different sounds in this pattern I'm about to play. This is the glockenspiel. It's the final instrument we're going to talk about today. It's also the most different from any of the others. The glockenspiel is an example of what we call keyboard percussion. And these instruments are called that because they look like a piano keyboard. I have notes, individual notes, and I can play melodies, or scales or anything like that. Just like a piano. And the glockenspiel is the smallest of the keyboard instruments. It's also the highest pitch, and because it's made out of metal, it has a very bright, metallic, kind of magical sound to it. Due to this, the glockenspiel is often used to represent magical or wondrous things in music. For example, this short little clip I'm going to play for you is from Mozart's The Magic Flute opera. And in this scene, one of the heroes uses an enchanted set of bells to cast a spell on the bad guys that are about to attack him so that they start singing and dancing instead of carrying out their nefarious deeds. So there you have the percussion family. I hope that you enjoyed this here today. Just remember that what you've seen today is only a small fraction of all the percussion instruments that are out there. There are many, many different instruments, all with their own sounds, colors, and techniques, and they're a joy to play. If any of these have interested you, I highly recommend you find yourself a percussion teacher and learn, because it has been one of the great joys of my life learning to play these instruments. Thanks for watching Symphony Spotlight.